The coastal village of Arkham, Massachusetts, had long nestled beneath the indifferent gaze of the stars, its steepled roofs and weathered docks cradling a quiet unease. Dr. Henry Armitage, astronomer and scholar at Miskatonic University, stood upon the observatory hill, his telescope trained upon a sky that refused to comply with the laws of the cosmos. The night was cloudless, yet the stars did not twinkle. They hung as lifeless pinpricks, devoid of their customary shimmer. The moon, too, loomed unnaturally still, a pale, unyielding disk that seemed to mock the passage of time. Armitage adjusted. His lenses, his brow furrowed, but the heavens remained obstinate, frozen in a tableau that chilled his rational mind. By dawn, whispers of stranger omens had begun to weave through Arkham's cobblestone streets. In the village's lone maternity ward, 3 children were born under the silent sky, their births marked not by cries, but by an eerie, absolute muteness. Midwives, pale and trembling, spoke of infants whose eyes stared with an unnatural intensity, as if beholding secrets beyond the veil of infancy. Armitage, summoned by a colleague to consult on these anomalies, felt a knot tighten in his chest. As he observed the silent newborns, their voiceless gazes seeming to pierce the fabric of reality itself. The following day brought further disquiet. Mirrors across Arkham, whether in humble homes or the gilded halls of the university, grew opaque, their surfaces no longer reflecting, but instead presenting a dull, gray void. Armitage tested his own shaving mirror, only to find it a lifeless slab, as if it had turned its back on the world. In the streets, townsfolk muttered of ill portents, their voices hushed as they swept away the carcasses of birds, gulls, sparrows, and crows that littered the ground. These creatures, driven to madness, had flown in relentless circles until exhaustion claimed them, their lifeless forms a grim carpet beneath the stagnant sky. Seeking answers, Armitage retreated to the labyrinthine stacks of Miskatonic's library, where dust motes danced in slants of feeble light. There, guided by an instinct he could not name, he unearthed a manuscript bound in cracked leather, its pages brittle with age. The text, penned in a trembling hand and a tongue half forgotten, bore a single, chilling admonition. When the stars weep, flee, for Xhyth'Raal treads the curve of the earth. The name Xhyth'Raal seemed to writhe upon the page, its syllables alien and unpronounceable, stirring a primal dread in Armitage's soul. He enlisted Elias Ward, the library's taciturn custodian, whose knowledge of arcane tongues rivaled his own. Together, they labored through the night, deciphering fragments of the manuscript. It spoke of Xhyth'Raal, an entity not of this world but of the vast, uncharted voids between stars, a being whose mere presence warped the fabric of existence. The stagnant sky, they concluded, was but the first herald of its approach, a cosmic distortion that heralded an incursion beyond mortal comprehension. As the village's unease deepened, Armitage sought out Martha Crane, a weathered fisherwoman whose tales of the sea were often dismissed as fancy. She spoke, in halting tones, of lights beneath the waves pulsing, unnatural gleams that formed patterns no earthly mind could fathom. Her weathered hands trembled as she described shapes glimpsed in the depths, forms that defied geometry, and left her sleepless. Convinced her account held truth, Armitage resolved to act. He gathered a small coterie, Ward with his quiet erudition, Crane, whose maritime instincts proved invaluable, and Thomas Blake, a student of the occult, whose reckless curiosity bordered on obsession. In a dimly lit study, they pored over the manuscript, their faces drawn as the weight of their task settled upon them. Arkham's townsfolk, meanwhile, whispered of curses and ancient sins, their fear palpable as the sky remained unmoved. Armitage knew time was their enemy. The manuscript hinted at rituals and relics capable of averting Xhyth'Raal's arrival, but such knowledge lay buried in forbidden tomes. With the village teetering on the edge of panic, he vowed to unearth these secrets, even as the name Xhyth'Raal echoed in his mind like a tolling bell. The sky above offered no solace, its stillness a silent promise of horrors yet to come. The air in Arkham grew thick with an unspoken dread, as if the stagnant sky pressed down upon the village like a lid sealing a tomb. Dr. Henry Armitage, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights, pored over forbidden texts in the shadowed recesses of Miskatonic University's library. The Necronomicon, its pages exuding a faint, acrid scent, yielded cryptic references to Xhyth'Raal, an entity described as a shatterer of worlds, existing in realms where time and space folded into incomprehensible angles. Armitage's trembling fingers traced the inked warnings, each word deepening the chill that gnawed at his resolve. Elias Ward, ever the silent sentinel, cross-referenced the manuscript from the library's archives with other tomes, uncovering mentions of a secretive sect in Arkham's history. This cult, known only in whispers as the Order of the Starless Veil, had venerated Xhyth'Raal centuries ago, believing its arrival would usher in an era of sublime oblivion. The discovery sent a shudder through the group, for it suggested that the entity's influence had roots entwined with the village's very foundation. Seeking external insight, Armitage contacted Professor Albert Wilmarth, a folklorist with a penchant for the esoteric. Over a crackling telephone line, Wilmarth's voice, taut with unease, confirmed their fears. Xhyth'Raal was no mere myth, but a force older than the stars themselves, dwelling in the interstices of reality. Its presence, Wilmarth warned, unravels the mind before the body. He urged Armitage to seek a coastal cave rumored to hold relics of the cult, a lead that aligned with an ancient map Ward had uncovered in a locked chest dot. As the group prepared, Arkham's omens grew more sinister. Shadows, cast by no discernible source, writhed in corners of homes, their movements defying the laws of light. At night, faint whisper syllables too alien to be human drifted through the streets, leaving listeners trembling in their beds. Worst of all were the dreams. Armitage, Ward, Martha Crane, and Thomas Blake each awoke gasping, their minds scarred by visions of impossible geometries and a vast, star-eyed presence that pulsed with malevolent awareness. Blake, pale and feverish, sketched what he saw: fractured shapes that hurt the eye to behold. Guided by the map, the group ventured to the jagged cliffs overlooking the Atlantic, where a cave yawned like a wound in the earth. Inside, the air was damp and heavy, laced with a metallic tang. Their lanterns cast flickering beams upon walls, etched with symbols that seemed to squirm under scrutiny. As they delved deeper, a sense of being watched prickled their skin, and Crane swore she heard the sea itself murmur in an unnatural cadence. A sudden noise, a scuffle of footsteps, forced them to douse their lights, hearts pounding as an unseen presence perilously close. Back in Arkham, evidence of the cult's revival surfaced. Crude altars, adorned with star-shaped carvings, appeared in abandoned barns, and hooded figures were glimpsed slipping into the woods at dusk. The group's suspicions were confirmed when they intercepted a cultist, a gaunt man with fevered eyes near the docks. Under duress, he raved of the Coro Estelar, the weeping of the stars that would herald Xhyth'Raal's crossing. The cult, he confessed, was preparing a ritual in the cave to open a dimensional rift, timed for the celestial event foretold in the manuscript. The interrogation turned violent when other cultists ambushed them, their faces obscured by tattered hoods. Crane's quick reflexes and Blake's desperate courage fended off the attackers, but Ward took a shallow knife wound to the arm. The group fled, their prisoner lost in the chaos, and regrouped at the university, shaken but resolute. Armitage, staring at the map now stained with Ward's blood, realized the cave was more than a hideout. It was a nexus, a point where the veil between worlds thinned out as the stagnant sky loomed overhead. The cult's chants grew audible, even in Archon's heart, a low, discordant hum that set dogs howling. Armitage knew the Coro Estelar was imminent, and with it, the cult's final ritual. The group, battered but unyielding, resolved to return to the cave, armed with fragments of a counter-ritual gleaned from the Necronomicon. Yet in their dreams, Xhyth'Raal's gaze lingered, a reminder that their defiance was but a fleeting gesture against the infinite. The stagnant sky above Arkham erupted into a grotesque spectacle as the stars began to weep. Crimson light bled from the heavens, trailing like molten tears across the firmament, casting the village in a lurid glow. Dr. Henry Armitage, his face etched with exhaustion, led his companions Elias Ward, Martha Crane, and Thomas Blake toward the coastal cave, their footsteps heavy with the weight of impending doom. The air thrummed with an unnatural pulse, as if the earth itself recoiled from the approaching presence of Xhyth'Raal Dot at the cave's mouth. A cacophony of alien chants greeted them, the voices of the Order of the Starless Veil rising in fervent worship. Peering into the darkness, Armitage glimpsed a pulsating rift at the cavern's heart, tear in reality that shimmered with colors no human eye was meant to perceive. Hooded cultists, their faces contorted in ecstatic fervor, encircled the portal, their hands raised toward a writhing mass of shadow that seemed to press against the veil between worlds. Crane gripped her harpoon, a relic of her seafaring life, while Blake clutched a tattered page of counter-ritual incantations, his eyes wild with fear and determination. A desperate battle erupted as the group charged the cultists. Crane's harpoon found its mark, felling a robed figure, while Ward, despite his bandaged arm, swung a lantern with surprising force, shattering it against an assailant's skull. Blake, chanting fragments of the Necronomicon's protective wards, drove back a cultist whose dagger gleamed with malevolent intent. The cavern echoed with screams and the sickening crunch of bone, but the cult's numbers dwindled, their fervor no match for the group's resolve. Yet the rift pulsed ever stronger, its edges fraying the fabric of reality. Amid the chaos, Armitage's mind was assailed by a glimpse of Xhyth'Raal itself. It was no mere entity, but a maelstrom of chaos, a tapestry of impossible angles and sentient voids that mocked the very concept of existence. Its presence burned through his thoughts, revealing the futility of humanity's place in the cosmos. Staggering, he clutched the manuscript, its ancient warning now a lifeline. When the stars weep, flee. But flight was no longer an option. The ritual must be stopped, or Archon, perhaps the world would fall, drawing on the Necronomicons. Forbidden's lore, Armitage improvised a counter-ritual, his voice rising above the cult's dying chants. The words, guttural and alien, tore at his throat, each syllable a wound upon his sanity. He inscribed sigils in the cave's damp earth, their shapes twisting as if resisting their own creation. Ward and Crane formed a protective circle, fending off the last cultists, while Blake, trembling, joined Armitage's chant, his voice cracking under the strain. The rift shuddered, its colors flaring violently, as if Xhyth'Raal sensed its banishment. Armitage realized the ritual demanded a sacrifice, a tether to anchor the spell. With a clarity born of despair, he offered himself, channeling his life's essence into the incantation. His memories of starlit nights, scholarly triumphs, and fleeting joys unraveled, consumed by the spell's voracious hunger. His vision dimmed, yet he persisted, his voice a fading echo as the rift began to collapse, its edges sealing with a sound like the universe gasping. With a final, thunderous crack, the portal vanished, plunging the cave into silence. The weeping stars above Arkham blinked out, the sky stirring once more with tentative motion. The surviving cultists, robbed of their purpose, fled into the night, their chants reduced to whimpers. Crane, Ward, and Blake stood amidst the carnage, their breaths ragged, their eyes fixed on Armitage's crumpled form. He lived, but his gaze was vacant. His mind a shattered vessel adrift in the void Xhyth'Raal had glimpsed. Dawn broke over Arkham, its light timid but welcome. The village stirred, its people emerging from a collective nightmare, unaware of the abyss they had skirted. Mirrors gleamed once more, birds took hesitant flight, and the newborn children, though still mute, seemed less haunted. Yet the cost was heavy. Armitage, confined to Miskatonic's infirmary, muttered incoherent fragments of alien tongues, his intellect a ruin. Ward, Crane, and Blake vowed to guard the manuscript, now locked in the university's deepest vault. Its warning endured, a silent testament to the horror they had faced. In their quiet moments, they watched the sky, dreading the day it might still again. For beyond the stars, Xhyth'Raal waited, its patience infinite, its tread an eternal promise along the curve of the earth.